Lena loved the scent of books, the comforting blend of aged paper and fresh ink that filled the air in the small bookstore nestled in a quiet alley. It was her sanctuary, a place where the world seemed to slow down. The store wasn't large, but it had an intimate charm, with narrow aisles and warm, dim lighting that made every visit feel like an escape. She came here to lose herself, to let the stories around her fill the silence. It was one rainy afternoon when she first saw him. He stood near the fiction section, his hands running along the spines of the books as if he were searching for something. But what? His dark, tousled hair and the way his brow furrowed in concentration caught her attention immediately. They didn't speak at first. Lena simply observed him from her corner, the flickering light of the lamp casting a soft glow on his features. Then, as if drawn by some invisible thread, their eyes met. His were dark and intense, and for a moment, the world outside the bookstore faded. A small smile played at the corners of his lips, and he nodded in acknowledgement. She smiled back, shy but intrigued. After a few minutes, he approached her. "Excuse me," he said, his voice deep and warm. "I'm looking for a particular book. Have you read The Night Weaver?" Lena's heart skipped a beat at the mention of her favorite novel. She had read it cover to cover more times than she could count, and to her surprise, she found herself sharing her thoughts on it with him. Their conversation flowed easily, like they'd known each other far longer than just a few minutes. She laughed when he said the book's ending had left him in tears, and he smiled when she admitted it had made her believe in the impossible. As the hours passed, the rain outside intensified, casting a rhythmic sound against the windows. The bookstore grew quieter, the soft murmur of their voices the only sound in the space. He moved a little closer, his presence somehow calming yet thrilling all at once. "I didn't expect to meet someone like you today," he said, his gaze fixed on her with an intensity that made her heart race. "You've got that warmth, the kind you can't fake." Lena's breath caught, her pulse quickening as she felt the magnetic pull between them. She could feel the heat of his body close to hers, and when he reached for a book on the shelf beside her, his hand brushed against hers. The touch was light but electric, a spark that lingered in the air. A few moments passed in comfortable silence before he spoke again. "Would you want to grab a drink? I know a quiet bar nearby. We could keep talking if you'd like." Lena hesitated, the idea both thrilling and daunting, but something in his eyes, something genuine and unguarded, made her nod. "I'd like that." They left the bookstore together, stepping out into the rainy evening, the soft patter of raindrops against the pavement, creating an intimate soundtrack to their newfound connection. The bar was small and dimly lit, just the kind of place where conversation could flow easily. Over a glass of wine, the conversation deepened. Their hands occasionally brushed, a touch that felt like a promise of something more. As the night grew later, their words became softer, the space between them shrinking until it was no longer a question of if they would touch, but when. He leaned in slowly, his lips brushing hers in a kiss that started gentle, testing the waters before deepening as the heat between them grew. His hands were tender, guiding her closer, pulling her into the warmth of his embrace. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the sound of rain and the soft murmur of other patrons, Lena felt a spark she hadn't realized she was missing. She had never imagined that a simple trip to a bookstore could lead to something so real, so intimate. But here, in this moment, with him, it felt like the start of something undeniable.